Hey, super excited. I have Nerissa Meyers with me. She's assistant coach over at Coppin State now, but has played at every level possible. She's an advocate. She is an athlete. She's a champion, all of the above. And so I'm super excited to pick your brain today and spend some time just learning about you and what your thoughts are around leadership, around athletics, around women, barriers, anything you can think of. So thanks for joining us today.
No problem. I'm super excited to be here. It's going to
Yeah.
be great.
For sure, for sure. So I always start with this question because it's we talk a lot about how our women tend to hold back their ability to talk about themselves, their accolades, all the things they've worked so hard to do, and so it's been a struggle for a lot of people to be able to do that. And I want to create a platform where our girls see women being successful at all levels, no matter what it is that they do. So you've played at, the amateur level, the college level, the professional level, even on the international level as well. So I wanted to just kind of get an idea from you of some of your accomplishments that you've accomplished so far in your life.
Oh man, when I saw this question, I was like, oh wow, I have to talk about myself. Like literally, that was the first thing that came to my mind. But well, at UL, I was an All-American, champion in the National Pro Fast Pitch League, All NPF Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, All NPF another time. Went to Japan for World Cup with Great Britain. Had the number 2 batting average in the world. Won a lot in Italy. So just, I mean, kind of like that.
You're just a winner.
Well, I hope.
That's awesome. And then you've also been a couple places for coaching too. So tell me a little bit about some of your stops and where you've been on the coaching side.
Well, when I started, I got back in. I was a GA a little bit at UL, and then I went from there to George Washington, and then I was in the travel ball world with Scrapyard and working with their travel ball team and also playing professionally with that organization. And then I left. So for the Olympic qualifier, I was in Europe for a long time, competing with Great Britain to try to go to the Olympics. And then when I came back, I came to Coppin, and I'm at Coppin.
Nice, nice. And so, as we both mentioned how sometimes it's a little bit hard for us to praise ourselves a little bit, or at least give ourselves some credit. I'm just curious, like, why do you think that is? Why do you think we struggle with that to be able to do that for ourselves?
I think growing up, people are told, or women are told to be modest. Carry yourself a certain way. Your job is to listen. Speak only when spoken to, and even when you do speak, it's you have to have a soft voice. Can't talk too loud, especially as a Black woman. Because then you're being aggressive, or
Oh.
your tone has to be. It always has to be a certain way. So I think constantly hearing that. You just naturally fall into that mold of I don't want to talk too much about myself, and even as an athlete sometimes it's like, well, my accolades should speak for themselves. I shouldn't have to continuously bring them up. So it's on that scale. It's one is you're a woman, you're a Black woman, so don't be too aggressive, don't be angry.
Yeah.
And then on the other scale, it's like, okay, well, hopefully my accolades do speak for themselves, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes you do have to go out there and toot your own horn to get people to understand where you're coming from.
Absolutely. That's a truly a great point. I think you pointed out two great things, trying to find that balance between the two, and then recognizing that you don't have to fit into certain stereotypes in order to be a certain way, and so I think
Right.
that's very important to hear. And so along the same lines, what drives like your ability to be vocal about race, about women in leadership positions?
When I was younger, like I did see African American women. Like I saw Dominique Dawes. Like for when I was little, I wanted to do gymnastics. That's what I wanted to do. So
Okay.
that was the first avenue of sports that I ever did. And it was because of her. I saw her on that platform. I didn't know that she was at the Olympics. I was just like, she's short. Her build is like mine. she was in sparkles, like that's what I wanted to do. And then the next brown person that I saw playing was Natasha Wiley. Once again, didn't necessarily know it was the Olympics. I just knew at that time I was getting into the avenue of softball, and she was playing a similar position that I was playing. And I'm seeing these people on TV. I think I also saw Ivory Latta. She was playing basketball as point guard. And so I'm like, okay, these people, you know, there's a way to do it, and they look like me, and, you know, possibly I could do it. So as I've gotten older, I'm like, okay, you know, that's one thing I really want to do. I really want little girls to look and say, you know what, I don't have to, you know, go to the best program or travel ball team. I didn't really play travel ball that much. So there's a way to get there, to get where you want to go without having to take other steps. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a way to get to the top of the mountain. And I wanted for them to be that vision, you know, like if I can be that vision and I can show them like, hey, I'm not necessarily from California. I'm not necessarily from all of these other places, but I can still get to where you want to go. So I thought that was very important for me. And then I'm the oldest grandchild. I have a lot of people under me. And right now my little cousin, how old is she? She's maybe like 8 now. And she's, you know, she was a little baby on the journey when my other cousin Brianna Cherry and I were at UL playing together, and she got to watch us, you know, and then she also got to watch us in the pro league. Sorry, my light was off sometimes.
I knew about that.
She got to watch us in the pro league, and you know, she's like, oh my gosh, I love Monica, like I want to be like Monica. But I'm like, if I didn't have that avenue for you, you wouldn't know, you know, that's you wouldn't be as close to that. So, you know, she doesn't realize how big it is to be able, like, she came to our game and she's like, Monty, can you come have a slumber party at my granny's house? You know, like, and I'm like, okay, like this is my why. Like this is why I have to continue to do it. So that's one reason why I continued, started, and then why I continued to go through.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. You know, that see her, be her, as we've been saying lately, is very true. You know, I was asked the question the other day, like basically, why do I feel like maybe our African-American athletes are not in softball? And so, you know, there's a lot of things that kind of came up in that conversation, you know, whether it be, you know, demographics, whether it be financial ability. But I think the reality is just that the exposure, like there's just not a lot of people that they see that look like them, right? And so, you know, every chance you have to be that example, even for myself, I'm not, you know, playing anymore, but if I can be that leadership role, that woman that's a boss, basically, you know, running her own thing and doing her own, you know, advocacy work, it's important. And, you know, I love to be able to have people on the calls who look like me, to be able to hear, so our girls can hear it. So thank you so much for that. And so along the same lines of that, you know, everything is not always, you know, the greatest experience that you experience. And, you know, you do have to overcome some barriers and face some adversity. And so, you know, what were some ways that you kind of overcame some of your barriers?
Do you mean as a woman or a woman of color?
I mean, honestly, both.
You know, on one of the last calls I had, the presenter was asking me, you know, hey, you know, did you feel like at UL that you guys weren't getting enough credit as you should have gotten from the softball world? And I said, you know, it wasn't so much from the softball world, because, you know, even though we were a mid-major, we had created, you know, a lot of ruckus hitting wise, and, you know, you could see that we were climbing and getting ranked nationally, but that wasn't the issue. The issue was more so in-house. It was recognizing that you had, at the time, top 10 program with batting cages that were torn up. You had a top 10 program with all of these things that if you went to a Stanford, or if you went to an Arizona, or if you went to other teams that were ranked nationally at the time, you wouldn't see all of this, you know. And then you have our football team and all the guys teams who are, yes, they were creating revenue, but you know, the only reason people really know you all is because we're on TV, you know, not because you guys are necessarily doing your job. Not to say any blows to the men by chance, because I think our baseball team was phenomenal, you know.
Absolutely.
They were great, but it was just like, you know, yes, we are women, but we are filled to capacity every game at the time when Low Teep was there. You know, we're bringing in the top ranked teams, we're bringing in the Michigans, we're bringing in the Arizonas, we're bringing in the Stanfords, we're bringing in all these teams, you know, and we're winning and we're beating them. And then we have, I don't know what brand we had at the time, but it was just, that was the fight. And at that time I realized, like, you know what, as a woman at the time, I felt like there's nothing we can do. What else more do you want us to do? You want us to be all Americans? We have all Americans. You want us to get high GPAs? We have high GPAs. You want us to bring in the big teams? We bring in the big teams. You want us to win? We win. Like, it was like, what else do you want? And that was one of the first times I think I experienced, you know, such a big difference. You know, and then even understanding on a deeper level, like what Coach Mike was getting versus what, you know, this coach was getting, and how much time he was putting into the program. And like, I was like, this baffles me. It was just, and he was pretty open about Title IX and his fight with that. And especially with us, because we're seeing it firsthand. So maybe from like the naked eye, it would seem like, oh, maybe it was the softball world, but really it's mainly in-house.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's a lot of the times the case. It's funny. I think about this a lot now, being like a business person. And, you know, I actually have two examples of facilities that I've worked with over the last couple of months. And it's interesting how in one facility, there is like a woman who's actually running it. And it seems as though the opportunities are not being offered on that level. But then I work at a facility where the men kind of understand, like, hey, we need to progress. We need to build each other up. Like, we need this in our facility, and how different they are and how they're pursuing and pushing me to be better. And it's interesting, just the different dynamics. So I completely understand what you're talking about there. And so when you talk about like barriers and having to overcome them, maybe talk to me a little bit about how mentorship has played into like your successes, your ability to reach your goals and overcome certain things.
I mean, for me, it's always important to have a core group of people around you. And luckily, my cousin Brianna, like I said, was with me every step of the way. Like, we're 11 days apart, went to the same high school, same college, played together in pros. So, you know, just her being another African-American woman with a different idea, like, because we love each other, but we're very different, you know, and how I see things. So just our avenues on how we get to places and how we would discuss them was great. And then having my pastor on my side, like, I never made a move without him. So if I had like a mentor per se, it would be him. Like, if I made the decision to go from Akron to Scrapyard, that discussion was always through him. If I made the decision to go from Scrapyard to here, Scrapyard to Italy, or whatever, it was always a discussion through him, you know, to figure out what way is going to best work for me in future, you know, instead of just staying maybe status quo where I was. Like, how do you continue to push yourself forward? And then just, you know, there were times where, like, I wanted to, when I was doing community outreach for Scrapyard, I had the chance to talk to other African-American programs and just discuss them, you know, how did you get this started? You know, and I did ask Natasha, you know, one time, like, you know, how did you start the Natasha Wiley Foundation? Like, what does that look like? How do you do that? So I didn't necessarily start it, but there were, you know, conversations with these people on, like, how can I help the inner city youth? Because at the time, I was going into the inner city, talking to these kids. I'd worked with Athletes for Hope about starting a little after school program in the inner city to, you know, to help those people. So it was more like, hey, like, I want to help as much as possible. How? And, you know, talking to the Natashas, talking to the other founder about, you know, how they did it, and trying to get it, you know, trying to figure out a foundation for myself to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's awesome that you have those resources and avenues. And I also think it's awesome that you want to do that for the inner city kids and the youth in general, you know. And I would say, like, when I first met you, I was excited to first of all see a African American woman. You know, with the Scrapyard Dogs, I actually worked at camp with you a couple years ago, and you know, and I was like, man, that's probably the first time I even really like paid more attention outside of college, like, oh, there's actually like a pro league, and like they have, you know, women that are doing great things, and you know, getting paid professionally and to play and things like that. And so it was awesome to hear. And so I know personally, like, just from following you and becoming, you know, pretty cool with following you on social media, how great of a job you've been doing. So, you know, I commend you, and I actually you keep it up, you know, because they need it.
Thank you.
You know, for sure. And so I'll shift gears a little bit, because you talked about ULL a little bit and some of the barriers and things like that, but I'm just curious, what made you decide that that was the place that that was your fit for college?
You know, when Brianna and I were looking for somewhere to go, first of all, we didn't start off playing fast pitch, so that was like an avenue that was super new for us. And then basically, we're really family oriented. We're close knit. So we wanted a program that was similar to that. You know, we wanted a program that was more homey and not, that was yes, business like, but a lot more homey. You know, you're going to learn from here. You're going to take everything that you have and you're going to apply it to life. And if ever you needed to talk to these individuals again, you could, you know, so that's kind of what we were looking for. And I don't really know how they found us. It was something like we were playing and then somebody watched us and then somebody told him, and then I don't know. But at the end of the day, when we went and looked at the campus and everything, and we talked with some of the girls, it felt like home.
Yeah.
So that's where we went. We wanted to go somewhere not too far away, but enough that we could grow up and come back home when we wanted to.
Yeah.
And our family could watch us and we could compete at a really, really high level. So that's kind of how we got there, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me a little bit about that transition from I think you played slow pitch, right? A little bit into fast pitch. Like how was that just in general? And I mean, to say that you've been able to accomplish things that you've accomplished, not having the foundation that a lot of these girls grow up having, where they're spending all this time, money, and energy, you know, in travel ball. Like, tell me, like, how were you able to make that transition and adjustment?
Honestly, I was just blessed with athleticism. Like, I was, you know, I was super athletic. I wanted to learn. I really wanted to be the best at whatever it is I was doing. So I saw it more as like a challenge. You know, I've never done this before. I went to like one practice and this girl was doing a windmill. I was like, oh my gosh, what is that? And then, you know, they were stealing bases. And like I said, I'd watched Natasha on TV, but I wasn't like super understanding everything that was occurring. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like this girl's moving her feet in the box. Oh my God, like what? So I think I was more intrigued about everything that was occurring. And naturally, my ability to want to learn and want to grasp and want to understand just kind of took over. So the transition became a little bit easier. And then in slow pitch, I mean, pretty much everyone makes contact with the ball hard. So I'm like, okay, like there's a lot more swing and misses, you know, here. You know, I'm having to, okay, this girl is stealing, now I have to move. It was just a lot of moving parts. So I think that was new, even going from slow pitch to fast pitch and then fast pitch to college, like understanding all of the moving parts and, you know, learning how to slap. I'd never slapped before. And in the middle of a game against Texas, Coach Mark was like, okay, you're going to slap. And I was like, what? I'm going to do what? And he was like, you're going to slap. We have to figure out a way to get you on base. And, you know, just me trying to learn and trying to understand, it eventually helped. And then by my junior year, I was triple threat doing everything. So, I mean, the transition at first, I think from high school to freshman year, it was a lot. It was like a lot of the first and thirds and okay, just bunt, slap, drag, whatever. I was like, oh, okay. And then we ended up staying over the summer, my cousin and I and a couple of us, and we just dialed in. We were like, you know what? You have a different hit style. We're learning how to do this. I've learned more about my body and biomechanics and watched film, and from like the transition from high school to freshman year and freshman year to sophomore year were like super big jumps. They were super big jumps. And I think the transition was hard at first, just understanding constructive criticism, understanding how much time I really needed to put forth. You know, hey, like when I'm doing this stuff, am I actually dialed in, or am I just doing the reps? You know, so all of that was new. Especially for somebody was naturally gifted with athleticism. Being able to hold myself accountable was new too. And say, you know, like, was I really locked in? Like, did I really give my all? Like, could I have gone and watched video this day? Like, could I have taken extra reps? And, you know, I think like all of that as far as transition piece was like huge for me.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I actually created a journal prompt because I'm trying to push this idea that I know how to build champion athletes. And we talk a lot about, you know, the physical side. We talk about the mental side as well, but the physical side, when we talk about it, it's not necessarily about what you do, but the intentions behind why you're doing it. You know, what is the purpose? What is the reason? So, you know, when you mentioned, you know, being present is what I got from your statement, is that like, hey, was I really in? Was I all in at this moment? Did I take the time to dial in at this exact moment and not worry about what else is going on outside? And so that's awesome. And then, you know, like you said, the time that you put into it, like you just held yourself accountable. You were able to just put your head down and just drive. And I love that. And I'm just curious, outside of the physical side, were there any other things that you maybe struggled with from moving from high school to college, or even college to professional sports, like any social adjustments, family adjustments, mental adjustments, anything that you kind of had to work through?
I think I'll say this first. Whenever I was learning all of the other stuff with, you know, what comes with being an All-American, what comes with being a top player in college, whenever I was learning that, I was also having to learn how to lead, right? So lead at a level at which, how do I say it? I was learning how to lead other people and what they needed. And I didn't want that responsibility. I'm not going to lie. I was a freshman. I had a lot of seniors around me that were pulling for me, and they were like, you know what, like you have this gift that not a lot of people have. And I know that you're struggling right now, but if you can just get past this, if you can get past this, like you're going to be great. And so by my sophomore year, Coach Mike is like, look, you have to lead the infield. Like, and I started paying attention of when he called certain things. Why do you call it on this play and not the next play? And that way I could make the people around me better by letting them know or talking through to them. And then it was watching him and understanding how he treated everyone, because not everybody was the same. You know, like maybe I need to go in depth with you. Maybe I need to put a little fire under your butt, but maybe I need to talk to you a little more softly. You know, like I was learning all of that in one. So I think that was really big for me to understand how do I get the best out of my teammates? You know, like one, I figured out how to get the best out of me, but I can't win by myself. So now, how do I get you on the rope? Does that mean we go to lunch and we have a discussion about whatever? Or does that mean I stay after and we hit extra reps together and we talk about the game? So that was a really big jump. And he kind of just forced me, like, you're gonna be the heartbeat. You're the heartbeat. Like whatever he saw, I don't know what he saw at the time, but he was like, you're the heartbeat. Here it is. Wow. You're the silent assassin. And I wasn't super like, oh my gosh, this isn't this. That happened later. But the time in college, I was like, hey, you can talk to me, or like, let's get it now. Like, let's go get it now. So I think I really, really learned that. And then on top of that, we read a ton of books, a ton of books about mental toughness. Like we didn't we didn't have the person that you go to talk about your problems. He was very old school in that aspect. So it was more like sit down, understand where you want to go, how you're going to get there, how to clear things out of your mind.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, it was learning like, hey, maybe I need to meditate. Hey, maybe I have to, in order to get the best out of myself, I have to separate myself from family right now. I did that a lot from college to pro, was separating myself from, I can have this conversation with you in 2 days. I cannot have this conversation now.
Wow.
You know, I can spend time with you right now, but I'm not in the right vibe. I'm not in the right headspace to be able to give to you, give to the game, give to whoever else I need to give to. And that was learned later in life, like where I need to be and how I need to be with that. But yeah, also it's just a matter of learning, like mentally and figuring out how to structure everything. So when I was at AU, Kat talks a lot about micro wins. And I know she talks a lot about micro wins on her page. So I just asked her, like, how do you balance? Like, how are you trying to balance it all? Because I know sometimes when I'm in grind mode, I'm in grind mode. And that means a lot of it, don't get upset, this is grind mode. But she was able to, you know, kind of balance family and the grind, and, you know, also be a leader for her team. And she was just, you know, like little micro wins. You have to win here. And then win, like maybe you journal about this and you're winning there. And then maybe you do other things there. So kind of just taking that from her and still like developing that part. I don't know if I answered your question. But.
No, you, yes, above and beyond, And you said so many great things. I'm like, God, I started writing stuff down here. I'm like, this is all the things that like, I feel like athletes need to hear. I mean, from learning how to balance, like when I need to be able to focus on, you know, the grind in this moment, and when I can then put that down and focus on family, and recognizing that you can be upfront with both of those scenarios and both of those people in those situations in a way that's going to be beneficial to you first, right? Like, and you accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish. And you mentioned something about coach seeing something in you. That's something similar that happened to me. Like, I felt like growing up, sports was great. Like, I felt like I was good at it. You know, people liked me for it, but it wasn't until like my coach told me like, hey, you see the game differently, or my professor calling me boss lady, and I just met her like that week, like things like that, where people speak stuff into you, you don't realize like that people see that in you. Oh my gosh, when they can unlock that and affirm that in you, like sky's the limit, right? And the last thing that I got from that is, with all of our girls, I try to do like a personality test. We do a DISC personality test. And as you were talking about being a leader, first of all, we talk about how do I define being a leader in a way that like is true and authentic to myself? Meaning I don't have to be this person that's always out loud, but like, how do I adjust it in a way where it's beneficial to me, but then I learn my teammates and help it be beneficial to them? Like you said, some of them you take to lunch, let's talk about it first, right? And then there's other ones you're like, hey, I'm gonna stay after, we're gonna hit another bucket of balls. Like, understanding and learning how to do that as an athlete is a crucial part, I feel like, to how our athletes develop, how they grow, how they become better teammates, and it's better themselves. So thank you for saying all of that.
No problem.
Yeah. And so I'm going to skip a couple questions because you basically nailed them. I do want to say first, though, that I went to Grambling, and we did go to ULL, and that was probably the worst game of my life, only because y'all were so good. And I don't know if you might have been there when, you're a little younger than me, but it was rough because, I mean, the fans, like from the fans to you guys doing well, it was just a struggle. Like, and we were never good anyway, but I loved the atmosphere. I was always said to myself, like, when I was back in Louisiana, if I ever stayed in Louisiana, I'd want to work at ULL, because I would feel like that would be the atmosphere that I would want to be a part of, right? That hard-nosed grind, but you have the support and fans there that are going to, like, I mean, it's like you're playing against a 10th person, like, basically.
Someone asked me, they were like, where's your favorite place? Like, where's your favorite place to have played? And I was like, well, I have two. It's like, first off, UL was my absolute, I loved playing. Like, you're gonna have to beat us at home with them. Okay, like, sure, you try. But but that was just that time where we had such a great rapport with our fans, and Coach Mike and Coach Steph had such a great rapport with the community. So that's just how it went. And then when I played in Japan, everyone shows up for them. Like, like their girls are playing, like if Japan's playing USA, Japan's playing Great Britain, Japan's playing Canada, Japan playing anyone.
Anybody.
It is, everyone is there. They are ready, and they're locked in. It was just such a great atmosphere to see.
Yeah.
And, in hopes that happens at some point here in the US where, a whole country can basically get behind you and say, you know what, we're going to be here. We're going to support you.
Yeah.
We really want you guys to win, but just first off, we are here.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you get in Japan. Like, we are here. We don't care what it is. They could be wrestling. Like, as a country, everyone was there, and you could definitely feel it in the stadiums when you're playing them.
I look forward to that day as well. Yeah. For sure. And so for someone who has been so successful on all levels, hitting, fielding, again, playing at all levels, how do you help define success or help our athletes define success when they're not necessarily reaching the leaps and bounds that you've reached?
I'd say just, the small things, like the micro wins, just understanding that it's a process. Mm-hmm. And when I talk to my girls here, I'm like, it was never about a batting average. It was always about a sisterhood. Mm-hmm. And understanding the small thing that you have in the sisterhood and doing that really well. Yeah. Because we don't work unless all the pieces are working. Like, if you don't go and talk to her about whatever statistic that's going on, then you won't know, and then we can't be successful. But she has to do her job well in order for you to know that.
Yes.
So we kind of talk about that, and then we touch base on, just being locked in. First things first, am I here today? Was I locked in today? Am I making sure that I'm here for my why, whatever that why may be, because that's going to transfer into life. You never know what job you're going to have, but you may start as a small clerk. You want to be the owner, but you have to start as a small clerk, and then you have to understand why. What is my why? Where am I working to? I have to figure out my why to make sure I get up, and then I have to make sure I'm present to make sure I do my work. Yeah. And then I have to make sure that I'm following the process in order to get to where I want to go. So for them, I would say just, continuing to write down your why, continuing to stay in the moment, continuing to love and be happy and grateful for the opportunity. And then all of those things filter into real world, whether that's family or work or anything. Like, it's never really been about, hey, you're an All-American. It's been about, how did you affect the girl to the left and the girl to your right? And, how did you affect your coach? How did you leave that? Because then that's going to transfer to whatever it is you want to do next.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love it. And so I'm just going to touch on one more kind of this topic here, and it's on confidence. And, back to the very beginning of the question where we're talk about yourself, right? Your accolades. And so I feel like our athletes struggle a lot with confidence. And just curious, do you have any advice that we can use to help our athletes develop more or better confidence?
I struggle with this one as well, not for confidence within myself, but to get them to understand. And so I always ask them, like, what are you confident in? What are you confident in? And, they'll tell me, and I'll say, well, why? Are you confident in it because you're successful? What makes you confident in that? And usually goes, well, because I am successful, blah, blah, blah. And I say, okay, well, you always want to work really hard on the thing that you're already successful at, but how hard do you work at the thing that you struggle with? Like, how hard do you really zone in on your mental well-being? Because that's a part of the game as well, right? Half of the game is, or most of the game is mental. It's not even physical. Not can you catch a throw? It's like, are you afraid to catch a throw? You know, so like, let's zone in. I try to get them to zone in on all of their weaknesses. Like, let's put time and effort into those weaknesses, because pressure only comes when you haven't done something over and over and over. Then you feel pressure, then you're nervous.
Wow.
You know, if I take a test, I'm nervous if I haven't studied enough. And that's what softball is. It's, you know, there's oh, it's so much pressure. There's pressure. Pressure comes when you're unprepared.
Ooh.
So if I can get my mental, if I can get my mental right, and I can zone in and find the core issue, then that's a step towards confidence. You know, and then whatever, if I'm struggling fielding, if I'm struggling running the bases, if I put more time, make sure that I'm present, and I'm putting time into those things, and I'm actually doing them to the best of my ability. I say doing them right, is it doing them to the best of my ability? Then that's a small step in the process to get better, which means now I'm more confident in that one area.
Yes.
Then I can, you know, continue to do that. It's just small things like that. And I think that young athletes, they're just like, no, I'm not confident, but haven't really worked on whatever it is that's making them not confident.
Yeah.
You know, I say, hey, have you journaled today? No. Have you read a, you know, listened to a podcast today? No. What about read a book? No. Okay, well,
right.
You know, it's going to be hard, because that's coming from your brain. Your brain is saying, I'm not confident, I'm not confident, I'm not. You could hit the ball right, and then you come back to the box, and the next box, I'm not confident, I'm not confident.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a mind issue.
Yes.
You know, that's a mental issue. And so if you're not working on that, then it doesn't matter what I tell you. It doesn't matter how many times you succeed physically. We're not going to be confident.
Absolutely. How do we help our parents? What advice can we give to our parents to help our athletes develop better confidence? Like, what should our parents be doing to help their athletes maybe build that confidence that you could think of?
You know, parents are always a difficult topic because because they think that they know, and they always want so much for their child, but sometimes they're not zoned into, you know, what their child needs or wants or how their child will develop. You know, they have like this preconceived notion of, oh, my child's going to do this, this, and this. Well, maybe your child doesn't want to wake up at 6 a.m. and go to weights. You know, maybe your child wants to go to a D3 and you want your child to go to a D1. It's not saying that they're any different. Yeah. They're not different, but you don't understand the time commitment that it takes to be at a D1 or a D2. You know what I'm saying? So first, I think the parents need to look in the mirror and say, hey, am I doing this for me, or am I doing this for Sally? Yeah. You know, and have that discussion with Sally on what she actually wants and her needs and where she's seeing her life go after softball. And then I would say they need to zone in on the podcast as well. Yeah. You know, like you need to listen and have an idea of what constructive criticism looks like as well. Because those talks after games are going to seep into what they do in life. So I think that's important for them to understand. And then I think the parents also need to understand the little wins and the micro wins and celebrate those things. Yeah. You can't always just celebrate the home runs. You got to celebrate the fact that your kid's a 5-tool player and they just dropped a bunt down to move the other person. And that's what coaches are looking for as well. Absolutely. So for me, I think the parents just need to do the homework just as much as the kids do.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That was such a great answer. And then my final one is because I just believe that if we can give these girls these tools that you're talking about today, you know, the balance, the accountability, the awareness, the confidence, the, you know, trusting the process, you know, the having a little swag, but being humble, right? Being leaders and understanding how to define that for yourself, like all those things. are the things that help our athletes own their power in the world, right? And I want her to own her power in the world. So could you give an athlete, what is one trait that you believe that athlete should have to own her power in the world?
I'd say competitiveness. Like, I think if you know how to compete, whether it's on the field or on the field, that's going to drive hunger, and hunger is going to get you to where you want to go. I've never seen someone who's starving, not want to go, so, not want to get some food. I've never seen that in my life. Sure. So just, compete. I'm not saying that you have to, dog it out. I'm just saying if you have in your mind, like, there's always a way to get better. I can get better. I can get better. I can learn. I can get better. If you always have that in your brain, then I don't really see how you can be unsuccessful.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Great job. And then since you said something about a podcast, I'm happy if you want to throw one out there that people should listen to.
I don't have one out there. I do. There's a book called The Mindset. I think it's one of the greatest books ever. It just kind of shows you contrasts in real life on having an open mindset versus a fixed mindset and what those things look like. So that's one of the books I really, really like.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much. This was great. This is awesome. And I always, find clips from our interviews, and I try to post them on social media. So you might get tagged in one of them, but
no problem.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem.